All right, everybody. Good evening. How's everyone doing tonight? Welcome to the North Carolina Cryptid and Paranormal Project. I'm your host, Tom, and I will be having Mr. Mark Trigger Henderson on tonight. Before we get started, I just wanted to say a couple things. If anybody missed this tonight, I'm going to be uploading it to the YouTube channel. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to the YouTube and give it a like, and let's grow this thing out and get as many members as we can so we can start doing our own live streams. But I'm glad to have you all out here tonight. Had a long day in the sun, but I'm back out here with my buddy Mark, Mr. Mark Henderson. Welcome to the live stream, buddy. How's it going?
Going great, Tom. Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. So what do you do for fun these days, Mark?
Well, lately, and we've been going out and hitting the woods in these extreme environments as far as heat's concerned. Bear always said he'd never go out in the summertime because of the heat. He said he doesn't do it, the snakes, blah, blah, blah. But we managed to drag him out kicking and screaming that, and he's enjoyed it. It's hot, but we get out there and fight the mosquitoes and everything else. But we've been doing some, not as much as we would like to. It's gotten pretty unbearable lately with this 112 heat index we're experiencing here in Mississippi.
Oh, well, hey, Carlito. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was so hot today. It was about 100 something with the heat index today. We went to the water park, and the pool, the wave pool, like I told you earlier, was like a hot tub bathtub. It was so hot, it wasn't even comfortable. It was just aggravating. So we didn't stay a whole lot long with the pool and stuff like that. Some of the slides were nice, but it's not fun waiting in line for about an hour to go ride a water slide that's 18 seconds long down a tube, and even the water and that's warm. So
yeah, probably wasn't a breeze either, was it?
No, sir. Okay, everybody in the chat, we got Carlito, Craig, Antonio, Steve, Patty, Laura. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. So we're going to start with Mark. You are part of the Bigfoot Outlaws group. Is that correct?
That's correct, since 2018.
Wow, that's awesome. And you and Matthias Tipton, right? You're like the next generation. Is that Matthias? Is that who you researched with, or someone else?
Yeah. Matthias and Kane. They're
Kane
in Ohio.
Okay.
And we have those guys. He's younger than me. I'm closer to Bear's age. But then our younger generation, we've got Ranger Dusty here in Mississippi, and he's tearing it up. He's got a lot going on.
I hear you. All right, I guess we'll kind of start with the history. What got you started into this? Like, were you younger, a kid, interested in the books? Like, how'd you kind of get into the whole Bigfoot, research, and how'd you get started?
Well, I've heard this quite often, but the movie Legend of Boggy Creek kind of kicked it off because I grew up on the bayou there in Mississippi.
Hey, wifey.
To see this movie, my brother took me and one of my buddies when we were about 9 or 10 years old. And, of course, we got back home at night, and I remember one line of the movie, they always follow the water. And I had to walk in with him down to his house. And, of course, I ran full speed back to my house, which was right on the water. But that's kicked it off, the interest there. And I always thought it'd be pretty cool, with these things in the woods. And I hunted and trapped with my grandfather for years growing up, all through my, 20s and 30s with him. And anytime I was in the woods, it always crossed my mind about these creatures. Could they really be existing out here? But back then, you're thinking, well, no, there are none around here. They're up there in Washington State or over in Arkansas. They're around folk. So I never related them to being in our area.
Wow.
But moving forward, I was watching Finding Bigfoot. Kind of got half interested in that, just amusing. Just have something on the TV at night, but. My wife walked in one night and said she had a friend of hers that has a ranch, does a rehab with wild animals, and said she's got some problems down there with these creatures on her property that are causing havoc there. And I'm like, what do you mean creatures? Because I've never heard her refer to an animal as a creature. And she said, well, these things like you watch on TV, this Bigfoot thing. I'm like, what? And that kicked it off right there. I said, I'm thinking, man, I've got to get down there and check all this out because a lot of crazy things were going on. Mm-hmm. That got me started in it, and I started, of course, going there and walking around the woods, bumping into trees, trying to learn about these things, and started listening to podcasts. That got it kicked off, and that's how I came across the Bigfoot Outlaws and started listening to them. And I learned a lot from those guys. They're just a wealth of information from those people. I finally, through some messaging, got in touch with Bear. He responded back, and we got together like in 2017 for the first time and went out over in Alabama.
Oh.
And that kind of kicked it off. We found out we had such parallels in our background from our childhood all the way through that it was just amazing, because I tell him something I had done or what I was involved in. He's like, I did the same thing. And we became very close friends from that.
What part of Alabama was this?
Oh, gosh. Yes.
Like northern, northwest?
National Forest. It's around, I think it was around Birmingham, back to the west of Birmingham, if I remember correctly.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was. We went out there, and the first night he did a call, and we got responses, and then we went to another area looking for tracks, but it had rained, so we didn't think we would find anything. And it was a bridge we pulled up on out in the, we were way out in the middle of the woods, and I looked off on my side, and I saw tracks down there, and I thought, well, it could be somebody, but it was so far out there. But what amazed me was the distance apart, the stride. And I said, come here and look at this. And he said, yep, that's it. Because they were like 5.5, 6 foot, stride on these things.
That's pretty wild. I have a quick question for you. I don't know if you know the answer for this or not, but I'll throw it out anyway. Would you be, or do you remember, that's a question for my wife. Yeah, that's part 2 of paranormal, but, would you say there was somebody that their name has something to do with money, reached out to Bear a long time ago asking about Bigfoot calls, and all of a sudden on TV they started using certain person's Bigfoot calls to find Bigfoot? Is that true? Because I've heard one of the guys mention it. I don't know if it was Bear or the other guy, but I've heard that several times during the show over the Outlaws.
I think they talked about it on one show that someone came to them wanting to record a call.
Yeah.
And they were suspicious of that. And they talked together and said, well, here's what we'll do. We'll give you this. And what they gave them was actually only part of a call. And all of a sudden it shows up on not finding
Bigfoot. Yeah.
Yeah. And they said, well, that's the reason we protect them, because like when I went out with Bear for the first time that night and he did a full-blown call and got responses, I was like, I've not heard things like that before. And I've hunted all my life. And he said, well, remember this one thing? Because I told him, I said, I've got perfect pitch. I remember the call. I thought, man. He said, well, remember, with great knowledge comes great responsibility. Because you get out around some of your friends and you decide to do this, you don't know what you're going to bring in, especially if you have your wife out with you and you go into the woods somewhere at night. Let's see if we can, get a response. You may get more than you bargained for. That's why we're so protective of not letting just anybody, we don't want to have that responsibility knowing someone got hurt because of us.
And they're more attracted to ladies in the woods for the pheromones. And I was told, that they'll draw them in even before a call. They're right. Interested if they can smell a lady in the woods. That's one of the things I'm looking out for. But it's funny how you said half a call. So maybe that's why they never found Bigfoot, because they weren't using the full call. They only used half a call. It was Ohio howl. It wasn't really an Ohio howl. It was half a howl.
Right.
That's funny. I just thought everybody get a kick out of that, because not everyone knows all the whole history of the Outlaws and you guys and Bear and Kumbo in the days back. I mean, I've followed this since 2015, and I've been friends with you guys and you and Bear and everyone since forever.
Right.
I learned a lot. I've learned a lot of I'm never going to say I'm an expert researcher. Just like you, I don't claim to know it all, because you can't, because the ones that do are the ones that are the arrogant and they think they do, and before you know it, something happens to them that you
don't hear from them anymore.
Yeah, either they become a suicide or accident or missing 411 or who knows. But yeah, so
that means never return to the woods again.
Yeah. What's your opinion on the David Paulides missing 411? I know there's a lot of cases recently with these people that were going missing. Like recently, a lady went missing or something, and they found her. They found her calf ripped open. I don't know if this was Colorado. It's either out west or down south, but her calf was ripped apart. Her forearm was kind of like ripped up. They said it was a dog attack.
I've listened to some of those, and it's hard to really blame these creatures for everything. Anything that comes missing, some people want to do that. And, I think that could be some that actually, they could be responsible for, but I think a lot of times it's misinterpreted by it was another wild animal attack, and they get the blame for it. Most encounters that I've dealt with as far as people having them on their property, and that's what I really do a lot of, work with people that are having issues and need help because they don't, they got to live with these things there. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, if there is an aggression, it's brought on in a way that was caused by that person for what I've seen. And that may not always be the case. That's just from personally what I have seen and things that I have heard, around that with the outlaw group.
Yeah, good point. So we were talking about you're kind of coming to and beginning. How many investigations have you been on? I wouldn't say in your whole time of doing this as a field researcher, but just basically, the last year, how many investigations have you been on last year?
The areas I'm working, I hate the word research. I got some areas that I do research, or I scout. Yeah, that's a better term for me. I scout it, and they're in there. I know that from just what I've been finding. But 3 main places that I've been working, and 2 of them are rehabbers, which I've talked about before on some of the other shows, and another location in South Mississippi, which is very, very active in that area.
Okay, that's a good way to call it, scouting. I like that because I don't consider myself researching when I'm just going out looking around for trying to find prints or looking for structures or looking for the glyphs. I mean, I was just out. I posted a couple pictures last weekend when I was out on the bike trail with my son. Not right down the corner from my house across the road. There's a huge Greenway bike trail that's it's a paved trail that goes for miles and miles, and it pretty much goes down like half the side of Charlotte. And there's an old creek that runs alongside it. Mm-hmm. And I'm just riding the bike with my son, going down the trail, and I'm looking up at it because it's just natural for me to look up in the wood line. It's because ever since my encounter in '98, I'm always looking in the woods. No matter, you can ask my wife when we're driving down the road, I'm always looking in the woods, whether it's left or right. And she's like, "What are you doing? You're gonna crash." I'm like, "No, I'm good. Don't worry." But I'm looking in the woods, and I see a bunch of X's, some bends, and I just see something that catches my eye, so I pull my bike over, and my son, he follows me up. It's like a nice little steep incline up the hill, and I see a couple X's. I see a really big bend, and then I see something like where the Y is, where there's like a Y part of the tree. Well, there's something that like where the Y is. I'm so used to doing this. Okay, so here's the tree Y. Mm-hmm. There's a tree in the middle of it like this. But it's broken on both sides and it's stuck in between the Y. And I'm like, that's really freaking interesting. Like, I've never seen anything like that before. And it wasn't done like that. You can't do that naturally. A storm doesn't do that. You don't break both sides perfectly on a Y formation of that tree. And not only that, just all around that whole tree where there's just all kinds of bends, breaks. There's like 10 feet up and higher, like, little 2-inch saplings that are broken around and huge bends. And then when I investigated the ground, there's a couple glyphs, and it looks like a very active area because you can see the ground. You can't see prints, but you can see the ground is like it was almost like it was like somebody took a hand tamper and tamped all around it. Like, I don't know if they're dancing out there or throwing a party or what. It's like a gathering. I mean, I'm thinking it's a gathering area because it's just kind of secluded. You don't see it until you walk up there, and then you get past that it's like a little hill that drops down like a plateau, and it smooths back out. It's flat land. So if you're not really looking for that area, you're not going to find it. But it's amazing how, if you know what to look for, you're going to find it anywhere. Like, I've talked to people over the years, like, like, you live in Charlotte and you got Bigfoot on your property. I was like, yeah, man, I'm not kidding. They're out there because I've heard them. I haven't seen them, with my own eyes, but my wife has. My wife's seen them with my night vision in my backyard. She said it looked like an ape standing about 8.5 foot tall, right past my fence. She has some good abilities. She could see these things even in pictures I take. She could see them in the pictures that I can't see them. She could just see them. I guess she sees their energy. She picks up on their frequency. I don't know, but she's good at that, and that's why I always like share my evidence with her because she's good at finding them. And like, if I miss it in a picture, she'll pick it up. So
Oh, yeah, she's got a good trained eye for it, pulling those things out. And it takes that. You got to really, because some people will call some things blob squatches, which there's a lot of that.
there
But
is, there
there's
is.
a lot of times if you know what you're looking for, like you're talking about, you can find it. It's there. I've got
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of that we've gotten over the years. But what you're talking about driving down the road, that's a curse of getting into this field. I don't know
Oh
why
yeah.
she's really riding down some country road or something. You're gonna kill us,
You're gonna kill us.
You're doing.
You're gonna swerve off the road.
Yeah, I'll back up. She's okay. Here we go again.
Yeah, scouting. That's a good term. I do like that because, like I said, I like to go out and scout a lot and like just look around the woods, see, find things, look for evidence, try to find scat. I mean, whatever I could find to show me that they're active in here because I feel that they come around and then they take off for a while. I don't know if they hide out underground because someone just recently told me, which is crazy. I didn't even figure this out, but I live a couple miles from uptown Charlotte.
Mhm.
Well, somebody told me there used to be a gold mine in uptown Charlotte,
Oh, really?
like underground mining tunnels. So I'm wondering if these things are going underground into mines because these are old abandoned mines that they kind of just covered up with buildings, but I'm sure there's still ways to get inside these mines and tunnels because
Oh, yeah.
there's always ways to get inside these little caverns. So they probably know where to get inside them, whether it's an old dried up creek bed that's next to like a little mountain on an overpass that nobody pays attention to because everyone's driving or looking at their phones and no one's
Right.
looking at shit. So that's half the world this day
They
and age.
don't know what they
No
don't
one's
know,
paying
right?
attention. Bigfoot. What I'm looking at, I'm doing a Snapchat, whatever,
Right.
TikTok. Forget it.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's pretty awesome. Okay, let's see.
I had an area out there that I started when I started this. I looked on a map to try to is national forest back to the east of where I live, and that's where I pinpointed a water source area. And I thought, and it's really thick in there. I thought if they're going to be in there, that's where they'll be. And I went in and found sign right there the first time I went out. Found a track, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, this close within 20 miles of my residence, and started going there. I think I was worked that area for about a year, and of course it's in the wildlife management area. But lo and behold, I guess I was paying too much attention to it. Maybe some others going there researching or whatever terminology you want to use. But they did a controlled burn and burned up all the sign. I had all kind of structures in there, and it was gone. And Bear said, "Yeah, that will happen." They realize you're coming in there, or too much of the sign is getting too close to the road in the national forest area, and they'll destroy it.
I've noticed that along there's some parts of like there's a new it's not an overpass, it's like a bypass road that kind of bypasses, like it connects part of Charlotte. It bypasses, it's called the Monroe bypass, so it bypasses like the old Independence Highway, which gets really congested. So this bypasses all that and brings you around the back loop. Well, they dug out like miles and miles of just woods and cut it out straight, made
Yeah,
roads on it. And every now and then they have like little areas where they burn off to the edge of the wood line. Every now you'll notice that if you know what to look for. And I always wonder, even on like even main interstates and parts of Charlotte, you'll see like, well, they have like an old, look like they burn some, or even like they'll take the those construction machines that it looks like a tractor but it has that hydraulic on it, and the PTO thing, it looks like a chain that spins around, and it's like it's brush hogs. They'll take those really big brush hogs and they'll clear like a huge path of the patch of like the wood line, and they'll clear like 10 to 20 feet of it in like a week. They
right.
do that a lot in Charlotte. And I just wonder if they do that because they're trying to keep these things back in the woods from coming to like where the road is.
Could be. It makes you, question a lot of things that they do out there. It's like, well, they burned that underbrush there. It was not needed. There was a lot of other areas in that not far from that really needed to have that done. But that, all the sign was destroyed. But I went back in there about a year and a half ago, and they're back, but they're not at the exact location, but they're back in there, and they're making the glyphs and other sign there too.
Yeah. Cindy says it right there. They're closer to the urban areas than most people think. I definitely agree with that because I live in an urban area and I know they're active in my area because I could just tell. I mean, I've heard them. I haven't seen them face to face, but I've had encounters where I was 20 yards from them when I was hunting a couple years ago, and they were making these crazy monkey noises at me back and forth to my 12 o'clock and my 1 o'clock.
Right.
I'm sorry, my 9 o'clock and my 1 o'clock, and they were 30 yards apart from each other. And the one at my 9 o'clock was 20 yards from me. The other one was probably like 40 yards from me. They're going back and forth, making clicking noises, monkey calls, almost sound like a baboon. And then it started turning into an owl call. I'm like, what the hell is this? And I couldn't do nothing because I'm 13 feet up in my tree stand. I dropped my flashlight when I was climbing the ladder to get up on it. And then when this started happening, I started shaking so much that I dropped my phone off the tree stand. So I had no way of a flashlight on a phone. I'm just sitting there in the pitch black, and I'm like, what am I going to do? So I'm just sitting there like, listen, I don't want to bother you. I'm not here to harm you. I don't want to disturb you. I'm just trying to hunt a deer. I'll leave you alone. So after I said that, about 30 seconds later, everything kind of got quiet again. And, like right before the sun comes up, the light will start coming through the sky. And when you're in the woods,
Oh
you're in
yeah.
the deep woods, it's still dark in the woods. Well, this
Right.
was pitch black. Then it started getting lighter, and then the dawn started coming, and then the light started creeping through the woods, and you start seeing like little brown, almost like brown shadows, but it's just the ground with the leaf on it. But other than that, I didn't see nothing except from what I heard, and then it got quiet. And then once the woods lit up, I stayed in the stand for another 20 minutes, and I got the hell out of there. And I didn't hunt for about 3 to 4 months after that because I was so like just startled, and my heart felt like it was going to pop out of my chest.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's crazy when you get an experience like that. I was, you're talking about equipment. The first piece of equipment I bought, I kept putting it off because I didn't want to put the money out on it. Was a FLIR. It's just a FLIR Scout. And I've told the story before. We were over in the forest over closer to the Mississippi River. Me and a guy that was researching or scouting with me at the time, and we pulled up to this old cemetery in these woods. It was probably 4.5 to 5 miles back in there, and it was around, I don't say, close to midnight. We got out and I did some calls and didn't hear anything for a while. Then we started hearing walking in leaf litter. Something's behind us. He's looking back to the north because the cemetery is behind the truck where he's at. And of course, we don't have anything but a flashlight, and it's a cheap one in the truck. And so you got three different things out there moving. I hear something off to my left, which is the southeast, and I hear something over there crunching in the leaves. I'm thinking armadillo,
Mm-hmm.
You know how it is when you're hunting. Here they come. But then I heard something else out in front of me, and he says, "Man, they're moving like strategically, getting closer to us, and they're spreading out." So the one that was off to the left, I stopped hearing that, but I heard something walk out directly in front of me. So he's due south of where I'm looking straight south, and the truck's behind my back, and all of a sudden, it just takes off walking, and it sounds like you are coming directly to me in the woods at a fast walk, and the leaves sound like cornflakes because it's dry. And I'm listening, thinking, do I stay still? Do I want to see if I can see this thing? What do I do? And this is all milliseconds going through my head. I'm thinking, I can't see what's coming at me, and it's getting closer and faster. And all of a sudden, the hair stood up on my arms, and it's like electricity run up behind your neck.
Yeah, I know
I
what you
had
mean.
that feeling, go now. I told him, get in, and we took off. And Barry said, I'm proud of you because you listened to that sixth sense, that instinct telling you it's about to get bad. They didn't want us out there. And I told him, I said, that's it. I'll have a FLIR next week. And it was shipped and delivered by Friday. So you live
I
and learn.
wonder. I wonder if that instinct that you feel is something that we've had in the past, and in the ancient days when these things, when we had more encounters with these things, when we were like, pre-Neanderthal, like Cro-Magnon,
Right.
the caveman days. I wonder if we kind of had this sense from the beginning of time when they were around, because we were kind of like at war with them because it was fight against
Mm-hmm.
the strongest to survive. It's like Darwin's, that kind of thing.
I think so. I think the more you exercise it, and you have to be use all your senses in the woods. That's whether you're hunting or you're doing this type of research or whatever you want to call it. You got to have all your senses working out there. You got to pay attention to the little things. Um, just like nature, you get in there, and I walked in some woods and I knew that these creatures were in there, and it was late afternoon, and I started walking off kind of in that direction. And all of a sudden, the crows went nuts at a distance, and that's nature's alarm system right there. I didn't set them off; something else set them off out there. And whether it was one of these things, I don't know. But if you'll listen when you're hunting, you'll hear these things. A blue jay, they'll give you away. You're up there hunting, trying to hunt a deer in that stand, you're being real still, and all of a sudden you make a move, and well, the deer doesn't see you, but the blue jay up in that tree starts squawking. His ears go up immediately, and I'll see that. You see that white tail, and he's gone.
See that tail pop up, and you see that little. It's almost like it pops up and it starts like twitching a little bit. You got about 3 seconds left before that thing's gone.
Yeah, the deer's gone. You're thinking, I'm gonna kill that blue jay.
I'm gonna shoot the hell out of that damn squirrel. They're like the worst ninjas out in the woods when you're trying to hunt. Them squirrels, they're like the biggest giveaway artists. When you
start barking and everything goes on alert.
I hate them damn things. I almost want to bring a BB gun sometimes with me when I'm hunting. So, something like a quiet BB gun. Almost one with maybe, I wouldn't say a silencer, but just one that's quiet, that doesn't make a loud noise, and just almost like a Red Rider, a spring action pump gun, and just pop a squirrel every now and then when they start barking, because that'll shut them right up. But then you still got to worry about spooking a deer out. I'm not a big fan of this. When you're up in there and you have like a squirrel or something, or even a fox. I've seen fox run up, spook my deer, squirrels, raccoons. I've seen all those critters in the woods when I'm hunting in my woods. So it is what it is, though.
And these creatures use that. That's an alarm system for them too. They know. They'll pay attention to the lightest stick break or anything, just like we do. We may be deer hunting in there for 2 hours and things are quiet around there. And all of a sudden you hear a twig break. And you'll look, and all of a sudden you see a deer that's within 40 yards of you or less. You never heard it come into the woods. You just happen to be looking and see that horizontal line, and maybe the tail twitched.
Well, that's funny. That's funny.
You knew something was there.
That's funny you say that's like nature's camouflage, because the same thing with Bigfoot. A Bigfoot can be 20 feet in front of you, and it can be standing dead still right on a tree or underneath a tree. And unless it moves or something, you're not going to see it because it's not moving. It's blending in perfectly with the Mother Nature. Mm-hmm. And unless it does some kind of move or makes a noise, you're not going to even catch on to that. It's just great camouflage.
Oh, you're right. Well, I was in South Mississippi a few weeks ago with the guys down there we're working with, and some associates of Outlaws, and this is a very active area. And we had one guy he was filming. He just had a camera going, and we ran up on all this sign out in the middle of the woods, and we walked out. We smelled something, and the guy turned to me and said, something's there. We could smell it. It had that strong musk smell. It's
rotten meat, almost like rotten hamburgers for about a week, and it's a piece of foil and
and it was
dirty animal.
Yeah, it was pretty close. We knew that, but we just didn't know how close. Well, the next day, he sends me a still from the video. He says, check this out. And you got one peeking around the tree. And you can see it's got a cone head, and you see one eye. It's about, this thing's different, but all right. It's backwards on my phone.
It's backwards. It's hard to figure it out. I tried to do the same thing.
You see about this much is all you see. Okay.
Wow.
And you look at it and think, am I seeing what I'm seeing? Because it's different color than everything in the background. I said, how close were we to this, what he found? He said, 12 to 15 feet. I said, okay. I said, how tall do you think this was? He said, it's probably a juvenile, probably around 7 feet or so. And we were that close, and never knew it was there, except for the smell, but it could have been a greater distance than that carried by the breeze. But looking at the video, you can see, watching the video as it starts to pull back behind the tree. I guess we may have turned and looked back at it, but he caught it when he was turning. He didn't catch it straight on when he was videoing. Right. He was videoing and he was turning. We turned away from it, so when it stuck its head out and peeked around the tree, that's what I call them tree pickers.
That's the best time to catch them. That's like what they say with these. I've heard them. They've been called. The juveniles are called the gangbangers, and they're trying to count coup on y'all to see how close they can get before you notice them. So I wonder if they were doing that. Trying to count coup on you.
Yeah, that's what Bear said. He said, he kind of cool on you guys. I guess so. At least he didn't reach out and touch us. He said, he could have probably done that if he'd wanted to.
That's crazy. That's real.
But
crazy.
Have you dealt with any type of infrasound or anything like that while you're out scouting?
I don't. I mean, I can't say I have, but there's certain areas that I go into that are far off from my property. It's not my property, but it's past my property. It's like down a valley and back up a valley hill, like, or you call them hollers, ditch, valley, hill, mountain, V-neck, whatever. But there's all kinds of terminology. But I'll go down the little valley and go back up, and there's like a dried up creek bed in the middle. And then when you go up the hill, it goes up to another trail and it kind of flattens back out. It doesn't really plateau off too much. It kind of just flattens out and kind of does like little dips and downs, and it has a little bends and curves around. Well, there's one curve that's really far off, and it'll bring you to an old church that's down the road from my neighborhood. It kind of brings you right to that property where the church is. Well, if you follow that bend, if you're staying in the woods, it goes back into like another deep set of little forestry area, and there's a lot of breaks, bends, X's, and it feels eerie when I go out there, and I kind of feel like I always have that feel of dread when I go into that. Even when I'm riding a 4-wheeler back there, I just have that feeling of dread, like I don't belong there. And people told me that sometimes infrasound will do that to you as well. If you go, they'll make you feel like that feel of dread is imposing on you.
Oh yeah, we the first time I was ever growled at, me and another guy were out east of here in these thick woods, and a friend of mine named Mike, he's from Mississippi, lives in Colorado now, but he did a show on Wes Germer's show about being followed home from 50 miles away.
Oh, wow.
And I started talking to him about that, and then he told me, I said, where exactly were you? Because he told me, I was describing the area, he told me that's where I was at in that area. He said, I'll tell you how to get to it. He was leaving food out there. He was feeding these things, bringing fruit about every week with a cooler and setting it out there. And the one time he didn't bring he left his wallet at home. The one time he didn't bring the fruit with him and leave it there, all hell broke loose. Him trying to get out of there, they got pissed. All right, that's why we don't, promote feeding these things. No. But he gave me the location. He says, go in there. He said, you'll probably have something happen. Well, I called my buddy up. We've been planning going that weekend. It's pouring down rain. I mean, it's coming down. I said, we know the location. I want to hit it. He said, let's do it. So we took off. We got out there, and I get out with raincoat on and a waterproof Stetson. He gets down. This rain's so hard you can't hear yourself think. And we take off down this road, and we get about 120 yards in, and I think I'm hearing a rumbling of a car engine. What I'm getting to is about this. Looking back, I think it could have been some type of infrasound we were experiencing, didn't realize it, or a low growl, one of the two. And because I stopped and I was listening, I said, "Are you hearing this?" Because he's about 10 feet behind me. And he's going, "Yeah, you could." It's like you kind of could feel it. Wow. And I'm looking and I can't see anything. So I start walking again. I walked another 10 or 12 feet, and all of a sudden, this thing growled off to my right. It had to be no more than 30 or 40 yards off to my right in the woods there. It went through me. If you've ever been to the zoo close to the lion or tiger cage, but not, it's down there distance, and hear them do that low, but you feel it at that distance. It's exactly that. It rattled every organ in my body. I froze, and I'm looking because I can't see this thing, and I know it's over there. But my mistake was I didn't look low enough, because everybody's expecting to see these things standing up and looking at you. But believe me, brother, they get on the ground like a salamander and move around.
And they belly crawl, right?
They do big time. I had an experience with that too close not long ago. But I'm looking over, I can't see it. And I look back at him, and I know by the look in his eyes, he heard it. Oh, yeah. And I'm debating whether do I push it, because I can't tell if this thing's moving on my flank with it pouring down rain like it was. And I said, no, I'm not going to chance it, since I can't tell exactly where he's going, if he's coming to me or moving off to the side and trying to cut us off from getting back to the truck. And I told him to turn around. We went back, but it rattled him. He said it affected him. He felt nauseous and dizzy afterwards. And I never did. I had my blood pumping, I guarantee you that.
I think it affects everybody differently. I mean, some people will urinate actually blood from the infrasound. Is that correct? I've heard it before.
Oh yeah, it affects people different ways. Bear had a lady out in the woods years ago, and it affected her to the point they thought she had a heart attack, and they had to get her out of there. And he talked about it on another show, but you got to know your limitations with anything, and dealing with these things too. You don't know how far to push. There could have been a young one in there that the thing was protecting, or maybe he could have just been the outer, the outer sentry that was guarding in the area there. But when I talked to Mike, he said, "Oh yeah, where that happened at, if you had gone to the right off of this, I'm not sure if it was still been there. That was a nesting area." I thought, wow, I got
Like a
that.
nursery. Like came up on a nursery,
Maybe so, but it didn't want us to go any further. But we've gone in there multiple times after that, and my wife's been in there with me, and we found a lot of sign back in there. So they're active in that area.
That's crazy. That's real crazy. I like you talking about investigating with you and Bear and stuff. What would you recommend for the the guy that's kind of starting out in this kind of, I wouldn't say field, but starting out to do like the Bigfoot investigation research? Someone that's kind of just watching a bunch of podcasts and they want to be that guy. Hey Noogie, hey Dave from Texas. What's going on, guys? Real quick. They want to be that. They don't want to be that guy considered, what everyone calls the armchair researcher.
Right.
Nobody wants to be the armchair labeled an armchair researcher, because you can only get so much information from podcasts, Google, and YouTube, and blah blah blah. There's only so much you can get from Reddit and watching. There's only so much you can learn from finding Bigfoot. They never truly found Bigfoot, but they're finding him. So that's how they keep the series going. But that being said, what kind of advice would you give? We talked about this before, like what not to do, what to do. Well, you want to start like give a little bit of a quick, like a run through of advice for the new guy that wants to be, start out going in the woods, maybe what to get, what to do, what not to do.
Let me say this starting out. I'm no expert, okay? I never claimed to be that. I'm on the tip of the iceberg on information, and I'm getting my feet wet and learning just like everybody else out there. I got some great guys I'm working with, and Bear's like an encyclopedia. He grew up with these things out on his grandfather's property. Yep. But in getting started, the terminology of boots on the ground, I heard that so much. Boots on the ground, bumping around, running trees, and all that, getting lost is not going to help you. You need to get with somebody that's experienced, that's got some experiences, that really wants to work with you and is not trying to a name for himself, because some people can push the envelope and get somebody hurt. You know what I'm saying? But get with somebody like yourself that's got experience and go out there and is willing to teach them and take the time up to show them the do's and the don'ts. And it's fun. It's like the greatest Easter egg hunt you've ever been on as a kid, but you're doing it as an adult, getting out there and learning to find the sign, where to look. And it's not impossible that anybody can do this, but you got to be careful who you listen to. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. And honestly, I mean, what would you think that the best, what to take out, like a notebook, simple notepad, maybe a pen, and maybe like a tape measure, basic stuff just to go out?
You can do that. I always forget the tape measure to one of the properties I was investigating. The lady that said, "Well, you got a measuring thing on your phone." I said, "What?" And she showed it to me. And it's on the Apple iPhone. You can take it and put it on point, like on a track, push the button and just move it forward and push the button. It gives you the reading of the actual distance, and you measure this, just like having a ruler with you.
That's pretty cool.
Of course, it runs your battery down. You don't get out there in the middle of the woods and have that happen. But I'll usually carry most of the time a small tape measure. And of course, with the phone, you got a camera. That's always handy because you want to be able to take pictures.
Oh, absolutely. That's you definitely want pictures. Take pictures. A basic cell phone camera is good to start out with. If you want to go up and spend a little money, it's good to have something that shoots 4K with some good zooming. Something with some digital zooming with it. Maybe some infrared. I have a night vision. I wouldn't say FLIR, but it's an infrared night vision monocular that my buddy Rick Lara LT from one of the other groups from the Texas Cryptid Project and the Darkwoods Cryptid. He's actually working on it for me because it crapped out on me, and it worked great. All of a sudden, I put the SD card in it, and I went to turn it on, or I put the SD card in it, and I filmed a little bit, and it worked fine. I turned it off, checked it the next day. I took the SD card out, tried to upload it, and then the thing wouldn't turn on anymore. So, go figure. The tech stuff. Well, it was an older model. It was a couple years old, so he thinks it just needs to be updated. But you have to you have to like, do a lot of stuff and plug it in and unplug it and reboot things, and just a lot of adding and installing and uninstalling.
Right.
I don't have time for that. He's more into that kind of tech guru stuff. I'm not. I'm the guy. If it doesn't work, you beat it with a hammer. Beat it with a hammer, put some duct tape on it, and hopefully that fixes it. So
that sounds like my approach there.
if it's not an air conditioner and heating and plumbing and electrical, I don't mess with it. So
Yeah, right.
that technology stuff is too much for me when it comes to those thermal cameras and installing, uninstalling, and deleting apps and blah blah blah. I'm just the basic when it comes to that. So
Outlaw Kane, Michael, and of course Matthias, they're into that more than I am, and they know all the particulars about the technology and all, and they do a really good job with it. So I kind of leave that up to them. But we've gone on several campouts. Of course, this COVID messed us up, and we only got to go on one last year. But we've got so much that's happened as far as in the woods and camp and all that we got to go into. At some point, we're getting ready to start doing the shows again on the Bigfoot Outlaws Hideout. Matt is started to do his show again, Bigfoot Crossroads. That's his
concept. Yeah, Matt Knapp.
Yes, he does a great job. He's got the great voice and enunciation for doing that, and he's doing that, and we're going to take over the Bigfoot Outlaw Radio and start putting that broadcast out. But we usually, and all the Outlaws in the past have tried to mainly focus on just putting out there what happens to us in the field, and not trying to pull from other people outside of that group, because we like to have the actual experience, hands-on occurrences that we like to share with the public, and hopefully they can learn something from it, or it may be entertaining for them. Mm-hmm. But on several campouts, one thing that you got to realize, if you intrude into their territory, mm-hmm. you're probably going to get a visit back at your camp. It may not be that the first night, but this has happened to us several times. We've gotten payback, I guess you would call it. You're going to come into our area. We're going to come into your area.
Didn't Bear's generator get messed with at the LBL in one of the campouts a couple years ago?
I think that might have been Coonbo's.
Okay.
I don't think it was Bear's, but we've had things happen there. One camp, I think we were in Kentucky, I believe, and they had followed us back in from where we had been deep in the woods. I don't know. I can't remember exactly where we were, but it was a very active area. Mm-hmm. And Michael Stuckey, rest his soul, he's an outlaw that just passed a few weeks ago. Great guy, knowledgeable, a lot of information, a lot of film footage and camera photos of these creatures that he retained. But he put us in the area, and boy, it was a hot area. He himself said no, he wasn't going to camp in there, but you can have at it. Mm-hmm. And we did. And we had some things happen that night that we'll get into later on, when we have time. But they followed us back to camp. That came back that next night. It was raining, and Bear was the first one. He got up. It was I think it was a tropical storm hitting the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and I got the alerts on my phone, and I'm trying to sleep. I'm in my tent, and it's pouring down rain. Bear's across there ways from me, and his, and Eric spread out, Kane spread out, Ranger Dusty's across from me, right there by me, and he's texting us, trying to wake us up about 2:30 in the morning. He said, I'm trying to text all three of y'all. It's been an emergency. I've been dead. Nobody responded. They came in behind his tent, and he could hear the murmuring, the chatter, the rapid chatter. He and his wife, Tammy, both heard that. And he saw something walk between his tent and our kitchen. We have an elaborate kitchen that his wife, Tammy, sets up, and she's the camp queen. We eat fine when we're on these campouts. You wouldn't believe it. He saw it pass from the light in the camp tent, the kitchen tent, back, walked past there. And then my truck had a toolbox on it, and he heard something. I heard it. It woke me up when something slammed against it. Bam, a metal box. But someone had been working on a camper to about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and I thought it was them. But I heard that one time, and it woke me up, but I went back to sleep. The next morning, I got up, he said, man, I'd have been dead if I needed you or Eric, because I couldn't get any one of you to answer the text, But Eric and Kane dropped off behind there the next morning. They found, 5 or 6 tracks back in there, and I found one behind his tent. Oh, wow. So they had actually come in there. And we were over in Arkansas camping about, I think it's 2 years ago. And we hiked in there. It was me and Eric and Kane. I can't remember who else was with us. but we went way back in there, and we parked the vehicle in one area off of a gravel road and walked in. It was several miles back through there, and we had like, I want to say 3 or maybe 4 rocks thrown at us. One hit, not twice, hit close to Kane. He was across the creek from me, and he's looking over there and hit right by his foot. He's got the rock that was thrown, and it came from it was like a cliff kind of behind us, and it came over our heads evidently from where it was thrown, because we could see all the way up to the base of it. But we decided, we'd been in there quite a while, going to walk out. It's getting late in the afternoon, so we decided to cut through an area where the 2 mountains had come in, and it was water rushing, beautiful place. I mean, humans probably don't see this area very often, because we get off trail. We don't follow these trails. We bust,
go off,
brush, and go back in deep. And we had to cross that river creek 4 times before we could get out of there. I think the last spot we got to, I was right behind Matthias, and he said, heck with it. And he just walked right through it, didn't take shoes off or anything. We got our feet pretty wet. We walked out, and where we came out at, it was close for us to hike back to the camp than it was to go back to get the trucks. I mean, we were way away. We walked and walked for something like well over an hour and a half. And we come walking up into the camp, and Bear and I think Miss Vicky was there, and Dan. And they're all looking at us like, what are you doing? Bear said, they're going to follow you back to the camp. And I think it was that night it happened. You can hear him walking around out there and banging on things, and you hear tree knocks. So that was payback, I guess.
Just checking things out, probably looking for food. Hey, you dumb humans, you come into my area, I'm going to come back in your area and show you who's home you're in, right?
Payback.
That's a good one. You were saying something about, if we can get into it later, talking about what happened with Michael, something events that happened with him.
Oh, with the growl?
Yes, yeah, I guess it was a growl. You're talking about with Michael.
That's the ones got followed 50 miles back home. Yeah, after I talked to him about that, this is what happened here, and I can't prove this is what did it, but it was about a week or so after I had come back that it happened to us, the year when we got growled at. All of a sudden, I live on 2 acres and have heavy woods behind my home and on each side. And I'm walking back there past one of our storage sheds and going back into the woods, just looking, because there's a little trail through there. And there was a break right there, close to the shed where I keep the forwarders, and all locked up. And I walked on up the trail, and there's a perfect bow, almost in a circle. I mean, it was perfectly bowed and weighted down by a large limb. I thought, look at this. And I think I sent that to Kane. He's like, yep, I think you may have gotten followed. But what was strange, Bear said, go back to that spot where that break is at and stand there and look back toward your house and tell me what you see. And it looks, because it's hilly in the area I live in, and it goes down steep and it goes back up the hill on the other side, and it kind of levels off a little bit behind the house. If you stand in that spot where that break is at, you look directly into my back windows of my den.
Oh, so, wow.
I don't know if they were doing that, or if that occurred somehow naturally. I didn't see them do it, so I can't claim that they did it. Right. But it's awful strange that those things happen. And I found a few breaks back behind here also. But they were older. They weren't anything fresh. Uh-oh, did I lose you? Tom, I'm not getting a reaction. I think we may be locked up here. There we go.
We're both locked up.
There we go.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I was going to ask you too before you finish, or go ahead and finish. I'll ask you when you're done talking about your property with the bends.
That's the only thing that's happened here. With the bow that was right in the middle of the trail where I couldn't miss it. It was like the same thing. You come in our area, we're gonna come over here into yours. I don't know if you take that as a warning or what, but like I said, I didn't see them do it, so I can't really claim they did it. But it's awful strange to have the same sign that we go out looking for occur right on your property like that. It never has before.
That's crazy. And it's funny, we talk about me going on that little bike trail, the Greenway Trail by my house. Mm-hmm. I snapped some pictures and put them on the North Carolina Cryptid Paranormal Project group. put some of those pictures in a thing, and my wife and a couple other people noticed there's actually pictures. They say there's a, if you kind of zoom in on some of the areas, you can almost see a face, dark, dark head features, face
Right.
backed out, and these are things that I don't notice because I'm just snapping random pictures. I'm not paying attention to what's out there. I'm just, the best way to get these pictures is just snapping randoms, because
Right.
they can feel you're not looking for them. You're just taking your picture and just snapping random pics. So that's not gonna, these things can, they say they can manipulate when you're taking pictures with a digital camera. So when you're not aiming your attention to the focus on what you're doing, they don't even pay no attention to that. So they're just out in the open, or out behind a branch.
Outlaw Jack Russell up in North Mississippi, he puts out all kind of game cameras. He's got some really nice ones, and these things are not cheap, and the batteries especially aren't cheap to replace. And he puts them out where he hunts it, and these things will be out a few days, and they're drained. I mean, completely down. And there's no reason they should last a month out there. But he's not capturing, actual any video evidence of these creatures or what's doing it. But it's just odd, how or why would that happen? It's happened time and again, and not just the same location where he puts it, but some other locations where he puts these cameras out. So it's really odd that they somehow can maybe affect the camera in a way that would drain the batteries. I don't know if infrasound is capable of doing something like that. That's not my field. So
I've heard a lot of that. There's a lot of that going on with other researchers and investigators, guys that go out in the woods and they film these things, and they say half the time they go out there, they're not even in the woods 10 minutes and their batteries get drained when they kind of come across the M1 or finding footage that's a little odd, but whether it's like an orb or something is moving out there, and before you know it, the batteries go dead. So something fishy's doing that.
Well, we were up in another place in North Mississippi. It was me and James Armstrong, Jack Russell, and Ranger Dusty. And this is where we saw Kong, what we call King Kong. Actually, Jack Russell and James saw much better through the FLIR than what we were able to see. We saw it. But when we got there and got out, Jack, I don't even know if he turned his recorder on yet or not. That thing started squealing and wailing and making all this weird noise. We're like, what the heck? He says he's never done that before. And finally it shut off. Well, we stood around there for a few more minutes, and Ranger Dusty and I decided we're going to walk back this way back through the woods. This trail goes back around to just see what we can see. So we're out there. It's probably 11:30, 12. And we walk all the way around and make a loop, and and then we take another offshoot. And as we're coming back, we can look toward where the truck's parked, and we keep seeing the flashlight coming across like they're doing this, in the woods. And a few seconds later, they do it again. I thought, something must be wrong. We get down there and turn to come down the truck. And they said, come here, come here. We get down there, and there's 3 of these things that are like in military strategic separation, and they were walking slowly toward us until Ranger Dusty and I showed up. And they said, you're not going to believe what just happened. They were getting concerned because the one off to the right, I guess he was the alpha. They said he was every bit of 6 foot or better down on his knuckles like a gorilla. Wow. He said you could see the arms, and they were massive out to the side. You got the heat signature that's coming off, and you see the shoulders and the arms. He said that thing raised up, and he said when he kind of raised up on his knuckles, he never stood fully up. He said it looked like he was close to 10 foot when he raised up. And they were like, oh, my God, this thing's coming toward us.
Like 12, 15 footer easily.
Yeah, and we came down there, and it's like they moved off, like one moved off to the left on its own, and then a few seconds later, probably, could have been a minute or so, the other one moved off. They didn't leave together. It's like he stood there and waited until those other 2 that were with him, and then he took off in that same direction. And they're watching them, and I'm trying to watch our 6 with my FLIR because I didn't know if something was going to come in behind us or they had some friends with them, so you got to cover your back door there and know what's coming in on you. But we had a strange episode with the lights again that night that some people talk about. It wasn't orbs. It was like fireflies, but they were big, and they had more of a bluish color. And the way they went from the ground up into a tree, it may have been natural. I don't know, but I've never seen anything like that in my life. I've been in the woods a lot, even before I got involved in this subject.
Hello, Brian. He got a good point here. He said when these cryptids go from physical to the formats of camouflage and or into the interdimensional plane, then the energy available within range, including batteries, is used in the process and sometimes depleted. Yeah, Brian is good at he's a paranormal researcher. He's part of the Bronxville Paranormal Society, and he goes out and does Bigfoot investigations up north with Al Santoriga, my other friend, and they're partners in this. So they know a little more when it comes to the paranormal because they have the they have sensing,
Right.
intuitive. So
Yeah.
hey, Brian, thanks for the input.
That's the only thing I've ever had really happen as far as oddity of dealing with lights or anything like that. I've had people on the property properties that I actually investigate that have seen reported orbs there, but I've not personally have seen that. And I've seen the tree pickers, sticking their heads out behind the tree through a FLIR, and you think the first thing I think, it's a raccoon or a possum on the side of the tree. But I've done location I was at last spring. Every time I put my FLIR up and turn and look at it, you would see it, start to go right on ease behind the tree again. And then I turn and look another direction for a few seconds and look back, and it'd be back out. And then when I turned to it, it'd pull back behind the tree again. But that was a very active night. That's a location where the lady has the horses, where they were stealing the horse feed. Recently, she went down there, and 3 of her horse stalls were opened up after the horses were put up that night. And she called the person that helped her there and said, "Did you let the horses out? Come in early in the morning, let the horses out?" And they said, "No, they should be locked in there." Well, something came there and opened the stalls up and let them all out. And they were out and away from there, but they were kind of wild-eyed. Something had spooked them evidently. So
their hair wasn't braided, was it?
She did not notice that. She did have a neighbor that reported that, but she said what she's mainly seen is just the witch's knots, which you can confuse.
You know what the whole hair braids, what the horse manes are related to Bigfoot, right?
Oh yeah,
that's not a good thing.
Not a good thing at all, and that's why I think these horses are so spooked with them. My wife and I went down and we stayed from like 9:30 one night to about 2:15 in the morning, and that's probably one of the most active nights I've had as far as events occurring, knowing they're there and knowing they were watching us when we pulled up and got out. We made a little small fire and we sat around it, but we heard, I had growls. We heard, there's a barn off to our left. We heard like a huge rock hit the top of the barn and go bouncing across it. And off to the right of us, where there's a pond, we had one of the horses come down about 1 o'clock in the morning to the pond to drink. And in that area to the right's where we know they're coming in from. And it gets down there and it's bent down drinking, and all of a sudden that horse reared up on its back haunches and turned and like twisted and let out a loud whinny and tore out running back toward the barn. I don't know what it sensed or saw, but something set him off. And
almost like a wild stallion.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it reminded me of, like you see on TV. But the lady beside me, my wife, in here, I started hearing this very heavy, deep-chested breathing. And she looked at me like, "Are you hearing this?" And I had my FLIR looking, and I couldn't see a thing, Tom. And it sounded like it had to be no more than 25, 30 feet from us in the woods there, and no heat signature. But it sounded like it was just massive, that deep, just guttural breathing.
That's wild.
I've heard my chair when I was sitting there too, because I've heard
that they can throw their voices out and make it sound like they're right 10 feet from you when they're somewhere else. Do you believe that they can do that? They have some kind of ability to make their voice almost be like a ventriloquist, make it sound like it's somewhere else?
I think it's not impossible.
Yeah,
I wouldn't discount it, but because being that close to the size, this thing sounds like it'd be bigger than a cow, and I can't see it, and I'm right there, and it sounds like it's right there, and I can't lay my eyes on it on any heat signature in there from that, and I should be able to see it that distance. And I'd get up and walk in there, and I still, wasn't picking it up, but you could sense that they were in there close.
Yeah, let's see. Lauren already said that, yes, that's what the Bigfoot do. That's not nice. We don't like to talk about that, but it's the truth of the matter is it's not really the older ones. This is mainly the juveniles that are of age, they're coming of age, or they're becoming that they're getting those hormones through their body. They're those ravaging male hormones, and some of them can't always find a mate. They go after animals. It's the truth. It's sad, and It could be anyone's farm animals, and I mean, there's
Sexually
documented
frustrated.
stuff from you guys a whole lot, you know.
Right. Oh yeah. I think that happens more than people want to admit.
Not many people want to talk about that either.
Mm-hmm. It's a tough subject to.
Yes, it
tough thing
is.
to fathom, to even think about that.
All right, I'm just gonna say we're getting close to an hour. I'm gonna do a couple questions before we finish this off because we had a great time tonight, Mark.
Thank you.
I definitely want to do it again with you when we
Sure.
once you come start doing some more stuff back with the Outlaws. We can do like a part 2 because I know you said you were gonna start to like revamp the Outlaws YouTube as well.
Right.
With you, with Bear, and some of the other guys. I know Matthias and Kane. I mean, real quick, I had a quick question for you too. I know Kane was talking about him and Matthias were doing a lot of research on what these structures. He said he was almost onto something where he knew he was almost like decoding some of these things that he was finding in the woods where they came to like structures and glyphs. Can you not give us a secret, but can you point to like any direction, like what he was referring to? And any means like what to look for when you're out in the woods. I know certain things mean certain, like what does the bend mean? What does the X mean? What does the arch? What does the break, fall over break mean? Do you have any clues to or opinions from doing this for a while?
His is more focused than that. From what I've gathered, he hasn't shared all that exactly with us yet. Okay. As far as the others concerned, I think a lot of the times it's speculation. We still don't know for sure. He's getting closer to some answers than we've ever had, but he wants to get it compiled and then set it down with us and get opinions, around the round table about what he's discovered and what they've actually proven out there. The bends, the breaks, and all. A lot of times you see they point to water sources or maybe food sources. You could have muscadine vines or, blinds or whatever that they're actually going toward. So we don't really know until we set one down and ask him questions. It's all speculation.
Until you can get one down, have a couple mash because a lot of these things that they love that mash, that corn mash, when out in the woods in the summer day, they will tear up a bucket of mash. I've heard so many stories of that too.
Let me tell you a story that happened a couple of years ago where I hunt at, and this is a good one. I was coming out, it was dark, and I left out, and I'm coming out of the woods, and I'm going up this hill, and there's several people hunting this land lease we've got. And one of the guys' son's out there, and he's probably about 17, 18 years old. And I see him parked at the top of the hill there, and he's not moving. I get up there and pull up to him and cut off the four-wheeler and start chatting with him. I said, he said, "You see anything?" I said, "Yeah, I saw some doe, and they came in." I shoot left-handed mainly with my rifle shotgun, but I'm ambidextrous with a pistol. It came in on my left side, the doe did, and I tried to switch the rifle to my right shoulder so I could get on the scope with it, and I guess I moved too quick and spooked it and ran off with something I saw. I said, "What about you?" He said, "Well, kind of, sort of." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I was in my stand, back over on the other side, away from where you hunt." He said, "And I've been there all afternoon. The sun's not going, it's not setting, but it's starting to go down." And he said, this thing, how he reworded it. It got up and this thing took off running to the woods. And he said it was breaking limbs and tearing. It's like it's tearing things down, just going through there, just making all kind of racket like a bulldozer. I said, "What do you mean this?" It got up and ran. I said, "You talking about a deer?" He said, Yeah. It's a deer." I said, "Must have been a mighty big deer to be doing all that." He said, "Yeah, it had to be big." He said, "It was tearing it up." He said, "It sounded horrible." Next morning, I get up and walk out there, and he's outside, and he's not in the woods. He's usually there, young kid, they not like us get older. We're going to get the woods about 10 o'clock after we have a good breakfast. But he's up, and he's not in the woods. And I said, "You didn't go in the back to try to get that big buck you saw last night before it got dark?" He said, "No." He said, "I might go back there. I don't know." He said, "But did I tell you it was pushing down trees?" I said, "Pushing down trees?" I said, "A deer?" He said, "Well, yeah." I said, "What do you mean it's pushing down trees?" He said, "You could hear the roots breaking and the trees falling, hitting the ground." And I couldn't say anything because I hunt with these guys.
Yeah.
They don't know what I do on the side, you know.
You don't want to lose your good hunting spot either.
No, I don't tell you, you can't come here anymore. I'm like, oh man, I want to open up and just say, tell me exactly what you saw, because I don't think you saw a deer. But maybe one day we'll have the discussion. But I thought it's pretty unique because the area we hunt, that whole area, Bear says, oh yeah, they're all in there. So
boogers all around.
Boogers all around. They're infected with them.
All right. Does anybody have questions for Mark? Put them in the thing. Put them in caps. Just put question in caps. You don't got to type the whole thing out. That's kind of aggravating, especially if you got a phone. You got to keep hitting the upper arrow button and then type a word and then a letter, and then that's really aggravating as hell. So if you got a question, just put in a Okay, so my oldest feet. Wow. Let's read this out, bro. This is Brian. This is the oldest. That's pretty interesting, Brian.
Oh, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. These things, they're bored out of their gourd. Is something like that is entertaining or different for them?
Especially camping, kids. Kids camping. They love kids. Something about kids. I think it's their innocence draws them in, and they just like to watch. They just like to watch people jump. But I think something about kids makes them more interested. They just like to watch kids, and almost like they get a joy from it.
Right. I mean, what else have they got to do? You get some excitement in the woods at night. You got a campfire going, and maybe they're roasting marshmallows or hot dogs, and you got that smell drifting through the woods, and it's going to bring them in. These people go out, breaking brush and really getting out and trying to find these things. A lot of times you just do the right thing. They'll come into you. They're going to come check you out because you're in their home territory and you're an intruder. They want to know what you're doing there.
Oh, absolutely. Antonio, I definitely, I will get with you on that on another note. I don't really want to talk about that here because it's kind of, it's kind of disgusting in a way, and kind of, I just don't like talking about that kind of thing happening to animals as well. But, I'll get with you on that, Antonio. And if in the next day or so, where I'll send you a private message and send you a voice because it's really it's an elaborate thing. It has to do with molestation of Bigfoot horses. So we'll leave that part out of the show because I don't really want to get onto that. But does anyone have any good questions for Mr. Mark Henderson? Because I mean he's got a lot of stuff to talk about. He has, I said, me and him, I don't ever claim to be an expert. He doesn't claim to be an expert, but he has good experience on his field investigations with the crew, with Bear, with, all the other guys. How long have you known Bear for?
Since 2017. That's when we first went out to the woods together, and I guess we've been kind of running together since then. I became an outlaw Halloween 2018. That's when I was voted in. Of course, you have to be voted in by every members,
Right.
But we still, we talk all during the week, and we get together as much as we can. We deer hunt together. He's also one of my hunting buddies. So, but actually, I think we do more boogering and hunting when we get out there. Like most of
like you're boogering more than you're hunting.
Yeah, if you deer hunt and you get involved in this field or turkey hunt, you cannot walk into the woods now without looking for sign when you start doing this. And you ask some advice, to people that are starting out in this field and pursuing this subject. Keep it fun. Keep it fun. Get out there and have a good time, but be serious when you're in the woods. Because we cut up and we laugh a lot. And it's a big camaraderie with the outlaws and the ones that associate with us. And we have a blast when we get together. But when we step out of that truck and we go into the woods, the fun, the cutting up is still fun, but the cutting up ends there because you got to cover each other's back because you're dealing with something out there that can hurt you or worse.
Yeah, Brian's got a good question. He said, can Tom join you on an investigation? Well, I mean, I think I always have an open investigation with you guys. The problem is the distance. I mean, I'm North Carolina. You guys are North Alabama. So if there's a way we could always, find something.
We'd love to have you with us.
I would love to drive to,
we need to do booger bait, man.
Booger bait, yeah.
Yeah. We set you on a stump out there, a lipstick and a dress and a wig on and a walkie-talkie. If we can make it 4 hours, you know, you may get into that inner circle.
Wow, is that the initiation process to be an outlaw?
That's what we tell
That what
everybody.
they do to get out there.
We told Ranger Dusty that, and he's like, man, I don't know about all.
Yeah, I better not hear no banjos playing out in the woods.
Right. And the places we go, you would definitely think you would hear them because we get way back in there, you know. We get away from civilization as far as we can when we do our thing.
No, I definitely love to go out with you guys in the future. I know Bear talks about trucks, and recently in the last year, so he was talking about these guys with their off road trucks, and they got these little tires and big rims, and they don't go nowhere. Well, I got a nice 4x4 with big tires and it's got good rims, but it's got big tires on it, and you actually see the tires on the rims. So that thing's gonna go somewhere, and it won't get stuck nowhere. I got my Booger mobile, my little Bigfoot decal on the back window, so I'm ready to come out.
Yeah. Oh man, talking about getting stuck? That's a story for another time. But if you associate and run with Bear, you're going to be stuck in the woods at some point. You can ask Matt Knapp that, and we did, big time. I mean, that record bill was probably close to $300 to get us out that night because we stuck 2 trucks.
Wow, that's crazy. And I know the biggest thing is when you go into a woods with a truck, always pull in and back your vehicle in. So when you got the shit hits the fan, when you got getting chased by one to get out of there, all you gotta do is get in that truck, start it up, and go and get the hell out of Dodge, right?
Right. I buried up and he was buried up. And I said, well, here's another fine mess you got us into, because it was an area where it was very active. And these things, they started cutting up around us there after about 30, 40 minutes. They were getting, I guess, agitated with us being there. Mm-hmm. But we got Ranger Dusty to show up with I think James and Jack, and they managed to get us. Well, it got me pulled part of the way out. And that was the end of that, because where I got pulled to, I couldn't actually come any further backwards. I had to get a wrecker that could pull the truck sideways and then pull us out. So that was a mess, but it was fun. Good memories.
Yeah, I've heard that one before. Fry a pan of bacon in the woods, and they will come. There's something about the smell of bacon. You'll probably draw any animal from 20 miles in the woods. That smell of bacon, they love that.
Oh yeah, you'll draw me in for sure.
You get hogs, raccoon, fox. I mean, every critter in the woods will be coming for a little snack. So yeah, exactly, including yourself. Bear might, if Bear don't get it all, then I don't know. He might eat all the bacon before anyone else gets to it. Oh, Big Hoss. I would have loved to see him out here tonight, but that's okay. He's probably got a lot going on. I'm going to probably most likely I'm going to upload this to YouTube. So whoever didn't make it tonight, they can watch it on North Carolina Cryptid and Paranormal Project. It'll probably be on the YouTube either late tonight or tomorrow morning, first thing. But I do want to thank you, Mark, for coming on. And seriously, if you guys do anything kind of field research in the future, just give me a holler if I'm available, because I would love to come out there.
Sure.
Do y'all take? There's another thing. Do you believe in bringing protection out with you when you go boogering?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because it ain't just Bigfoot out there; it's other shit.
That's one of the. I guess that's part of the reason I got the name Trigger. But yeah, I'm usually well armed, and it's not really for the boogers. We were up on the top of a mountain in Kentucky as an example, and we had gotten off trail and trying to get down before the sun went down, and we're all in a straight line. I ran up on fresh bear scat. I thought, oh Lord, and I made sure everybody was, in line, because if we got charged and we're in mountain laurel up to here, we couldn't see it. If it's coming, I didn't want to accidentally shoot someone. But that for bear, wild hogs, that's the reason that I carry, and several others do too. I'm really not worried about the boogers out there, because they're not going to bother you unless you corner them like a wild animal, I think, or you get too close to a bedding area. It could be some issues, but usually you're going to get growled at, rocks thrown at you, or general hell raising to make you leave. You've experienced the pacing, so that can happen. But you got to be conscientious of your surroundings, especially being armed like that, because you don't you don't just pull that weapon on anything.
No, you got to be ready. It's like you got cougar, bobcat, bear, mountain lion,
Right. And
coyote. You get a pack of coyotes run up on you, just like wild hogs. Wild hogs are nasty. No one realizes how nasty these wild hogs are in Texas. They'll tear up a farmer's field, and in 3 days it'll be completely gone by a pack of wild hogs because they're so adamant tearing shit up.
They're very dangerous, and we've got in several areas that we go, we've got that mountain lions and all, and you got to, be conscious of your surroundings and pay close attention because you don't want to get in a situation that you can't get out of.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for coming around tonight, everybody. Thanks for showing up. And like I said, thanks again, Mark, for being on. Let me interview you and having a discussion. I'm definitely looking forward to doing it again and
absolutely
chatting it up with you guys. And definitely, if anybody's interested, if you want to plug your the group and the YouTube, if you want and people to join up, and just mention it real quick before we close.
You talking about the Outlaws?
Yes.
Oh yeah, well, look us up, Bigfoot Outlaw Hideout. We're there. I've been posting some of the older shows as we're getting prepared and equipment ready to start putting our own shows out. But I'm not going to guarantee that it'll be a once a month show or anything. We'll put it out when we got good material to share. That's what we want. Have good substance there, not just put it out there to.
That's one thing that I give you guys credit for. You always put out something. If it takes 2 months to get something out, like you put out good content, you're not just putting out whatever to appease the audience. You're actually putting out good substantial stuff, and if it takes a month or two to get it out there, it's well worth the wait because you guys put out some great stuff, and I always enjoyed it over the years. Thanks again, and you guys, the Bigfoot Outlaws are also on YouTube, or it's Bigfoot Crossroads now?
Bigfoot Crossroads. You can find the older shows actually archived at the bottom.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, and definitely it was good to talk to you, and good to have you on, old friend. We've been friends for a while. We finally got to do something fun together and have a little interview show, and I'm looking forward to doing this again. So have a good night, everybody, and good night, Mark. I'll meet you once I end the broadcast.
Enjoy.
All right.